What's going on YouTube? So I got a really cool tool that I've been wanting to use for a very long time, and I just got it in. It's the Kreg Jig K4. We're going to do a little review on this, and we're going to show you how it works, so stick around. So there's literally about 10,000 videos dealing with the Kreg jig on YouTube. I just want to throw my 2 cents in because I do a lot of woodworking around the house. You know, whether it's trying to build cabinets or just regular DIY stuff. Maybe I wanted to build a picture frame. You know, one of the things I want to do down the road is actually build a king-size bed frame. And this is going to help me do that. Not only is it going to hide ugly nails and bolts and all that stuff that you would see sticking out, it's going to make things a lot more sturdy than what it would be if I were to just use a nail gun or some screws or what have you. I've seen so many reviews online talking about how good this thing works, and I just couldn't wait to get my hands on one and actually see for myself. You know, how was the build, number one? Because I couldn't tell online, is this plastic or metal? You know, how easy is it to use? You know, is this something for a construction personnel that does this every day, or is this something that a DIY person can use themselves? That being said, I'm going to try to answer those questions, and I'm going to try walking through this with you. So not only did I get the Kreg jig, I got a couple plugs, I got a sander. You know, I'm going to try just butting a couple pieces of 2x4 together. I'm not going to get crazy and build cabinets for you, I'm sorry. But just a couple 2x4s, so it would show you how you would build such things as like a frame, okay? But we're going to do that. We're going to see how well the joints hold up, how sturdy this thing is, how easy it is to use, and so on. So let's unbox this and see what we actually get. So what they're saying we're actually getting in this box is the Kreg Jig K4. We're going to get a step drill bit and a stop collar, a 6-inch square drive bit, a starter screw set, which they actually come with a few screws, but I went out and purchased a couple more. They're pretty cheap, and a starter plug set. So they will actually give you a few plugs in here. So let's see what you get inside. You get the Kreg Jig skill booklet. Right, and this shows you a couple different ways you can cut up some pilot holes. And then right here is a bookshelf, right? So those are some plans for a bookshelf, which is pretty cool. That's nice. Design options. You can actually do a workbench, so that's very cool. I might actually do that. Then you have some different screws. You know, it tells you what type of screws you want to use for what. So the finer screws would be for harder wood such as oak, and the more coarse screws you're going to use for, you know, pine and so on. Maybe like a 2x4. And then you're going to get your owner's manual. And now the fun begins. So inside what you're going to get also is some screws. So these are the 2.5s. There's probably some 1-inch, 1.5. There's 1 1/4. So that's nice. They give you some screws to get started. And I believe there's like 50 screws total. So that's a plus. Over here you get the jig itself with the clamp. Let me scroll down a little bit. With the clamp. So we're going to go over that. And just so you know, this is a plastic, but it's a heavy duty plastic. I can feel it in my hand already, so that's nice. You're also going to get a drill guide, which this is actually really heavy. What's nice about this is it's metal inside. I believe it's hardened steel, and this is what you're going to use to actually adjust the depth of your angles and help you actually drill those holes. So very cool there. What I was not aware that came with this is a clamp. The Kreg clamp. I had actually ordered another one of these. They didn't have any in the store, which, you know, I was kind of disappointed. They must have been sold out, but these clamps are awesome from what I can see. So we're going to use that, and that's going to help hold this jig down, and we'll also use it to hold the 2 pieces of wood together that we are getting ready to screw together. All right, so let's see what's in this here. More screws. All right, so there's some more screws here for you. That's nice. Oh, wow, I did not know that they were going to give me this. This is a single one here. That's awesome. Single jig. You're going to get the Allen wrench and the stop collar. Let's see what else we got. You're going to get about 5 plugs which I ordered more. So there's some plugs that come with this. Right here you're going to get a really long screwdriver bit, and so these must take the square heads. So this is really long. You can put this in your impact wrench or your drill, so that's going to help. Here you're going to get the Kreg drill bit. So this is nice and long where it's actually going to go down. It's really light and very sharp. So you're going to get this in the kit. You're going to need that. And you are also going to get a spacer bit. So you get a lot of stuff in this kit. I was really surprised. I'm really happy about the clamp. I didn't even know I was going to get that. So thank you, Kreg. Appreciate it. So all in all, you really do get a lot. You really do get a lot with this kit. The one thing you don't get, I mean, I guess you could use the box itself for a case, but you don't get like a plastic hard case or anything like that. So that would have been nice, but I can live without it, I guess. You know, there is a lot of stuff here, but I did go out and purchase other things like plugs, more screws, and I got another clamp coming in. But yeah, so far so good. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to see how this thing goes together, and we'll try to put a couple pieces of 2x4 together. All right, so I'm going to put this portable base in, and the one thing I've noticed, I did mess around with this a little bit, but man, it's really tight. So I don't know if this is going to just loosen up a little bit down the road. But I just noticed it. Man, this is really snug in here, and when you go down further in, it really is a pain to pull back out. I mean, I had to get a screwdriver and kind of lift it up. So I'm hoping that changes, because there is a screw that goes right here that will go into the holes in the back and keep that in place. So I'm really hoping that maybe expands a little bit. All right, so the clamp itself, you know, I was a little nervous. I said, oh man, that doesn't seem right. But what this allows you to do is actually adjust for thicker and thinner pieces of wood. So that's nice. And now I can just come over here and pull down. That's actually a little bit too tight. So that's how that goes in. So that's really cool, and that's nice that you can adjust that. So right here you can see that there is different measurements, right? So you got a 1/2 inch, you know, 3/4 up to 1.5 inches, right? And then on the other side you got 5/8, 7/8, 1/8, you know, 1 3/8, and so on. So what that's telling you is that you can use that to find out the depth of your pocket hole. So I'm using it's not an actual 2x4, we'll just say 2x4, but it's actually 1.5. So what I want to do is I want to use this here, this drill bit, and I want to find the actual length that I need. So I'm not worried about this part right here, okay, the actual pilot. What I want to do is I want to use where it's going to start cutting that hole out right here. I'm going to bring that to 1.5, okay? So here you can see you have the locking mechanism, and then they give you an Allen wrench. So all you're going to do is tighten that up like so. So that doesn't go anywhere, okay? Now when I actually put this into my hole, that's going to lock in place. It's not actually going to let it go any further than that. So that is how you adjust the depth. Now on the side here, I also want to make sure that I have this set to 1.5 inches. So I'm going to bring this down to where that line meets. Okay, that should be good. And now I'm going to screw this in on the back here to make sure it doesn't go anywhere when I am trying to drill that out. So now it's time to actually use the clamp. And this thing is actually heavy duty, got a nice grip on it. You can see here, it's nice and flat. It doesn't have any teeth on there, so you're not going to chew up, you know, this or this right here. You can adjust it in the back. So what you want to do is actually find a place you want to crimp this down so this doesn't go anywhere. You can adjust it and then just squeeze. And right there, now this isn't going to go anywhere on you. All right, so what you want to do is, and you got to make sure that you hold on to these directions. And just to let you know, this is a depth chart. It's going to tell you what size screws you need. I'm actually in Spanish. I don't want to go to Spanish. I can't speak Spanish. I wish I could. But anyway, so the material thickness, say if it was, I don't know, a 1/2 inch thick, and say your Kreg jig setting was at the 1/2 inch mark, you would want to use a 3/4 inch screw. What we're going to do, since we're at 1.5 inches, right, so we got 1.5 inch material thickness. I don't know how well this picks up, but material is 1.5 inch thickness. the Kreg jig is set up at 1.5 inch mark. So we are going to use a 2.5 inch screw. And that's how you read down through there. Once again, if you were using, say, a 1 inch, and then the mark was at 1 inch, you would go 1.5 inch screw. Okay, so now I got the 2.5 inch screws, and like I said, some came with it, but I actually went out and purchased the Kreg screws. And I know there's another brand out there, but we're focusing on Kreg right now. But these are like $4, so that's not expensive at all. So what we're going to do first is figure out which piece of wood we want to hide those pilot holes in, pocket holes, whatever you want to call them. And say if I just wanted to do something like this, right? I want to go on the inside of a piece of wood. So what I'm going to do is put this down in there. I'm going to open up that vise. Remember, it was already adjusted. We'll put that right in the middle. Okay. And we're going to close that. And now this shouldn't go anywhere. We could actually probably make this a little bit tighter. Okay. Now that's not going to go anywhere. So now what we can do, let me zoom out, or let me bring this up a little bit. So now what we can do is just drill down right in there, and that's what's going to make our pocket holes. So let me get out my drill and we'll drill out some holes. So what we're going to do first is figure out which piece of wood we want to hide those pilot holes in, pocket holes, whatever you want to call them. And say if I just wanted to do something like this, right? I want to go on the inside of a piece of wood. So what I'm going to do is put this down in there. I'm going to open up that vise. Remember, it was already adjusted. We'll put that right in the middle. Okay. And we're going to close that. And now this shouldn't go anywhere. We could actually probably make this a little bit tighter. Okay. Now that's not going to go anywhere. So now what we can do, let me zoom out, or let me bring this up a little bit. So now what we can do is just drill down right in there, and that's what's going to make our pocket holes. So let me get out my drill and we'll drill out some holes. And FYI, you do get the Allen wrench, and that actually goes up in the front and it actually has like a little hiding place for it. So that's pretty nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this drill up, and we're going to insert, one second, we're going to insert the bit. And remember, you got the stop collar on there now, so let's tighten that up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use the jig to drill out the holes. So hopefully this works out correctly. I'm going to set my power up a little bit here. Actually, I'll tell you what, let me get a better shot. All right, so let's try to make this hole now here. So I'm going to stick this in here, and you can see this makes a little bit of a mess. Now they have attachments that you can actually put on there and hook a vacuum up to it, and it'll actually suck all that out. So imagine drilling maybe 50 holes. You're going to have a little bit of a mess. So let's put this down in there. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is take this off, and I will show you what those look like. All right. So now we have our hole drilled out, and you can see that we're going to actually put these screws down in here. Now you can go one of two ways with this if you wanted to build a frame. Say you were building a picture frame, you can do it just like this. Let me zoom out a little bit. You could do it just like this. And that's probably how we're going to do it today. We're just going to bring those in like that. Or if you wanted to, you could come like this, set that up like that, and actually drill down just like that. So it should make an amazingly strong bind. Okay, so now I get to use my clamp again, which I'm pretty excited about, and this is going to need adjusted. You don't want these moving on you. So we're going to try to put those close together. I'm going to open this up here. You just got to make sure that these are flush. Now mind you, these are just a couple pieces of scrap wood here, so. All right, get that a little bit tighter. And we're going to crib it. That's it. So now what we're going to do is use our 2.5 inch screws. And remember, these are not fine threaded, these are coarse. because this is pine 2x4 and you want them to grab. If this was a harder wood, you would go with something a little bit finer, and it also has the square head, and you can see that this comes with it. And what's nice about this is it's nice and long, so you can actually get in there. All right, let's check this out. Here we go. You can see that pulled that real nice and tight. Let's put one more in there. I'm trying to do this in an awkward position so you can see. Okay. Now you don't want to go crazy on this. You don't want that to actually split that wood. So you just want to make sure that if you have an impact, you adjust it to a lower setting, or you can use a screwdriver, which I like using impact guns, but you can use a screwdriver. Just bring down your power a little bit so it doesn't split that wood or pull it in too tight, especially if you're using thinner wood or hardwood or expensive wood. So let me take the clamp off, and now you can see that you have a perfectly attached board. You don't have these ugly nail holes coming out on you. I hate those. So, and it's extremely solid. I mean, that is a solid bite on that. That is awesome. Really easy to use. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to actually put a couple plugs in there, and we'll sand them down. We'll put some plugs in, we'll glue them up, sand them down, and I will show you what that looks like. Okay, so these plugs actually come with the kit. You get like 5. I bought extra ones just to let you know. Kreg, and I'm probably going to buy this, but Kreg actually has a plug cutout kit, like a little extension that you can use on the jig. And it actually allows you to cut out your own plugs, and it'll match that wood that you're using perfectly. You won't even know that you actually have a notch cut out. So, but yeah, these are just your basic run-of-the-mill plugs that I'm going to stick in, but I'm going to put a little bit of wood glue in there, and we'll let them dry out. Let me put them in real quick. All right, so a little bit of wood glue right here, a little bit of wood glue right there. Now let's put those plugs in. All right, here we go. So I'm going to slide that in just like so. And then this one in, just like so. And what I like to do is I like to leave these up just a hair, because when you sand them down, you're actually going to get like a nice smooth finish. But if you go down too far in there, then you're going to have like a divot. So leave them up a little bit, and then when you leave them up a little bit, it'll actually allow you to sand that down, and it'll be completely smooth. So let's let these dry here for about 5–10 minutes, and then I'll bring out the sander and I will sand that down for you and see how that looks. All right, so now these should be dry enough, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an orbital sander on this. This is a Ryobi, and I'm also going to have a review on that. Check that out on the page. But we're gonna sand this down a little bit and try to make that nice and smooth. And I'm using 120, I believe, sandpaper. You can use 80 grit. 80 grit will get that down a lot faster, but if I want to be able to paint, I want to be able to get this down and be able to sand it down if I wanted to paint. So I'm using 120. So all in all, nice and smooth. There are a couple areas that could probably use some patching, but honestly, you're never going to see these. I mean, you're trying to hide these all together. So I mean, right here, you could paint right over this, and you're probably never going to see this stuff. Okay, so now you have a perfectly connected, whatever you want to call it, piece of wood. And if you were going to build a frame for a picture, or you just wanted to build a shelf, you can see how that works. And like I mentioned before in that video, it is just a solid joint. I mean, it's tough, it's not going anywhere, and it was so easy. That was my first time ever using that. So I'm happy with it. only real issue I found with this jig was this right here. Like I said, it's a little bit tough getting in and out. I would imagine that would loosen up eventually down the road, I would hope. But all in all, extremely simple to use. Makes such a nice joint. You know, putting those two pieces of wood together has never been easier. This is definitely going to help me out building my cabinets or my bed frame like I talked about. And if you're a DIYer that likes to work with tools, this is it, man. Get one of these. This is probably one of the coolest tools I've ever had. So that being said, if I were to give this a review of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, listen, it's simple, hands down, it's a 5. I've never used anything like this before. No more nails going into the sides of wood and then going back and forth on you. You know, if I put 2 nails in those pieces of wood, they would move and twist and turn. Even screws aren't going to hold them as good, you know, without that solid bite. So, man, this is awesome. I highly recommend. I hope this video helps you. If it does, please thumbs up, subscribe. We'll catch you soon.